So what a country like India needs is the smaller GPUs. If the target audience is the education and the health sector, for that, if there are data centers we also heavily invest in the smaller GPUs. So we are mostly bringing in through the partners, the H100s and the bigger GPUs. But the smaller GPUs, if we don't have any partner, we'll continue investing in it because we believe that's what is required for your college student or deploying it to your schools and medical things. Through OCC, they're trying to do two things. One is figure out orchestration layers, multiple ones, not just Jarvis Labs, and figure out data centers. If there are like 100 data centers they can put it, we can provide one of the layers for them to interact with these data centers.
Hi, wherever you're joining us, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Tech Conversations, where we bring you insights from tech entrepreneurs, CXOs, and investors. I'm Hari Arakli, and in this episode, Vishnu Subramanian talks about how his fascination for open source software set him on a path of entrepreneurship and how he started Jarvis Labs, a data center orchestration startup for India's AI needs that's now ready to go global. Based on the outskirts of Coimbatore, Jarvis not only offers affordable GPU options, but also a software layer that allows customers to quickly start focusing on their own work rather than worrying about the complexities of spinning up cloud infrastructure for AI. Among individual users of Jarvis today are researchers from companies such as Tesla, Meta, and the University of California. On the business side, its customers include Upgrad, Zoho, NIIT, Weights and Biases, an AI developer platform provider. And Jarvis also collaborates with Open Cloud Compute, a non-profit effort out of Bengaluru, to build a network of micro data centers to support widespread development of AI in India. So Vishnu, thank you for doing this. And it's nice that we're getting to do it in person. Just to get us started, can you give us a quick snapshot of your journey? I think you started at Wipro more than 15 years ago, and then sort of the journey from Wipro to starting Jarvis. Give us a quick background,
Sure.
and we'll go from there.
Sure. In 2010, I joined Wipro. And the first 3 years were the normal journey because of all the proprietary softwares. If you see in 2010, open source was not that popular, right? In the end of 2013, open source was picking up, primarily in the form of big data, Android. What it helped people like me is to learn these things and without paying any hefty money and practice these things on simple laptops, which helped me pick up an interesting problem, which I faced in one of the projects in Wipro. The problem was we were trying to build a business object report, which was getting crashed after processing for an hour. So that led me to a curiosity. When Google was able to handle millions of data sets and respond in a second, why are these tools not able to handle? So I was looking for answers. That's how I got to the answer called Hadoop, which is basically a concept called MapReduce, which kind of changed the entire distributed computing space. Then a lot of things came like Spark. And inside Spark, there is a subset called machine learning, how to do machine learning in distributed computing. Since I was getting specialized in this, I was also getting pulled in by companies which needed these expertise, which was helping me to get from the services to the product size of the companies in Bangalore. That's when the Wipro journey was in Chennai. And Bangalore was a Bangalore is a city which kind of attracts all the young talent on new age technologies. So I got a job.
When did you move to Bangalore?
Yes.
When did you move to Bangalore?
Around 2013 end.
Okay, how long were you here?
Maybe for till 2019.
So right up
till I started Jarvis Labs.
Jarvis.
Yeah.
Okay.
We started Jarvis Labs in Bangalore. During the COVID, we thought, okay, let's not. Bangalore is too expensive to run a bootstrap startup.
Yeah.
So we kind of moved to Coimbatore.
And what got you interested in open source software?
So with proprietary, the challenge is either you need some influential person in your relationship or in your network to pull you into the project. That's how you learn that. And then you get a very niche space, you get paid higher as long as the proprietary thing needs. Open source is what, if you're curious, you can just learn it. There is no blocking. There are entire communities around it. There are YouTube videos where people explain. For example, most of the things I learned in Hadoop or Spark or even in AI, I really did not spend any money. I did not do any graduation. In fact, I say my entire education is split into two parts. One is till the Wipro first 2 years. I'm from school to that. Just more theoretically, I did not know what I was doing. And then my new age education started when the open source space started. Particularly, there was a guy called Jeremy Howard from fast.ai, whom I keep on reminding. He taught a completely new way of education. It's a top-down approach rather than a bottom-up approach. And he showed a lot of things like how to solve a problem, how to think from first principles. That kind of helped me and a lot of people from fast.ai. It's an open source thing. There is no payment for doing that course, and it's available online. There are like probably millions of people who have done that right now. A lot of alumni went out. Some of them started companies. Some of them are working in Hugging Face, Meta, and all these companies right now.
Does it require some level of technical understanding to do this course?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay.
It's Python. But the good thing is, when I was doing it, I did not know Python. I was in the Java and in the Scala world. But Python was much easier than that. But even if someone does not know Python, I would still recommend them to try it, because Python by itself is a very simple language. As long as you are decent in English and you're decent aptitude, you can still pick it up. But even if you leave the programming language aside, you understand a lot of concepts so that you don't need to be in the jargon world.
Okay. Can you now talk about how you came to start Jarvis? What was the initial idea that you had?
Right. So this also started from fast.ai. So there is something called Kaggle, which is like the Olympics for data scientists. So one of the things Jeremy recommended us to do is participate in Kaggle for 5 minutes a day. Kaggle is something considered, at least back then, to be something for PhD, doctorate kind of people. Very hard. People across the globe try to compete it. I tried once before I met Jeremy virtually, but after he pushed all of us to do, I was one of the few who actually tried starting doing it, which led me to buy a GPU computer. That allowed me to enter into the world of the complexities involved in building a GPU computer in India back then.
Which GPU did it have?
It's Titan XP or something.
Okay.
So it was not available in India. No one was selling that. So one friend who was flying from the US had to kind of bring it here. We built the first one, and the one GPU is not enough for Kaggle. And the way how the Jeremy Howard class actually helped me in Kaggle is the simple rule, which also changed my entire life, is however hard the problem is, if you can try to solve it for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, and if you can do it consecutively, the compounding effect takes in. Something which I thought is not for me. Suddenly, when I started applying this, and applying, of course, whatever I've been learning in the fast.ai, I started ending up in the top 10, 12 in the world, right? Which is like probably in my entire schooling, I never did that. So that was like a good thing for me. So this also introduced me into the world of cloud computing. One single GPU is usually not enough for your Kaggle competitions. So people across the globe compete with it. And mostly the winners of that, there will be two categories. One will be a hacker who figured out how to build an amazing solution in a very small GPU. The other kind of guy will be one which had like hundreds of GPUs. Thousands of GPUs were still not popular back then. So which also made me try using some of the cloud computers like AWS, GCP, and some of the other smaller players back then. The problems that I faced with this, most of the hyperscalers were not ready to give GPU instances for smaller players like us, individuals like us, because GPUs were still in high demand back then, not as high demand as today.
When was this?
This was probably in 2015, right? So, okay, I was doing this, then I got introduced to the world of cloud computing. I was also consulting for some companies after 1 or 2 years, becoming expert, specialized in that particular field. For some of the Fortune 500 and some of the startup companies, I was consulting how to build AI solutions for some of the problems they were facing. One common problem that I observed in all these companies and individuals was they took a lot of time to set up the infrastructure, even though they had some of the best DevOps teams. Because the DevOps usually worked at the traditional cloud computing, which is not very aligned with how AI works. AI is still in experimental stage, and a lot of new best practices are getting formed. For example, individual may take anywhere between a week or two to crack it. An average individual, smart guys are exceptional. The DevOps teams and companies end up taking months, which is a huge loss of time. So when I wanted to leave my last job, I wanted to solve a problem. I was reading one of the Y Combinator Paul Graham blog, which was recommending basically to solve the problem that you are facing. So I was facing two problems. One was I wanted to upgrade my workstation, which I bought earlier, to a 4 GPU workstation because I wanted to do more experiments. Buying a 4 GPU workstations in 2019 was not an easy thing in India. So I decided to import one from the US, but the cost of that was too high. 4 GPU system itself is expensive.
Tell us which GPUs you zeroed in on and how much would it have cost?
It was 2080 Ti. That was the best GPU back then.
Which company made this?
Sorry?
Which company made this GPU?
NVIDIA. It's always NVIDIA, right? For AI, till date, if someone is buying, it's 99% NVIDIA. Like probably if you're experimental, if you have good money, you end up paying probably Intel or AMD is probably the second bet you do.
Okay, so for NVIDIA 28.
Correct. The cost was somewhere around 14 to 15 lakhs.
Wow.
And every time there is a repair, I have to ship it back to the US to get it fixed. That was crazy. So I just wondered, like, as growing up, I remember companies like Compaq, even Wipro used to have their own computers. So when companies did that several years back, I was just wondering, why are we not doing it today? So the initial version of Jarvis Labs was actually to build these desktops along with the software and sell it to people. That's when the COVID hit. We had initial orders from some of the top IITs in India, but we were not able to supply even one workstation because the entire shipment got blocked, which was also like a blessing for us.
Why was it blocked?
The entire shipping during COVID got blocked.
Oh, because of COVID.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this all, we started in 2019. 2020, the COVID actually hit. We got stuck. We are not able to move for almost 6 months. So we wanted to go to Tamil Nadu. The e-pass took almost 6 months' time.
Right.
The things went all up and down. So there was this guy, Alok Kejriwal, who sold his company to Disney. I attended in one of his sessions and where he says that if you survive COVID as an entrepreneur, then you'll be easily moving on. So that's the only thing we're hoping is let's survive. We did not know how long it is going to take. And okay, let me take a step back. We wanted to enter into the physical business. We realized the delivery timelines were too high. We were not getting the deliveries basically. And we also understood the taste of Indian business in buying these things.
And was this the same configuration that you were
exactly
at?
like 4 GPUs, 1 GPU? I mean, the colleges were like getting too granular. They wanted the cheapest one. And they did not.
Does storage matter in these things? I know GPUs come with their own RAM, etc.
Yeah, VRAM, the GPU, like the 2080 Ti or A6000, then the GPUs we were trying to sell was A6000. They come with like 48 GB RAM. That's usually enough. The problem came with we had to service these computers whenever they want.
Right.
And the payment was 2 months after the actual purchase, right? And dealing with Indian semi-government organizations like colleges, we found it for a startup like us, small startup like us, it's too expensive to do it. So we kind of take step back. We also had another idea of setting up a cloud once we make some money from the first selling of the product. We kind of prioritized that because that allowed us to sell it to the global customers, not focus on the Indian customers. Again, there's one thing I learned from Jeremy again. He compares Bay Area entrepreneurs with Australian entrepreneurs. He's an Australian. He says when an American thinks about a company, he thinks for the internet. But when an Australian thinks, he usually thinks for Australia. That has to change if Australian entrepreneurship has to change. So the same thing applied to me. The first product was focused on India, but the cloud is focused on the global world. So we got more attracted to the global product rather than this. So we kind of left it. We thought we'll do this later when the COVID shipment and all goes if we want to do it. We still think about this once in a while, but knowing the Indian market, the challenges of it, we don't go behind it. That's how the cloud market got started, where we said most of the cloud providers back then, it takes 1 minute to 3 minutes to launch an instance. And then you have to set up a lot of things like CUDA, PyTorch, and all those things. And that needs expertise. Then you set up popular IDs like Jupyter Lab, SSH connection. This entire thing takes 5 to 7 minutes for an expert. So we brought that to 15 seconds. So anyone across the globe can just do one click, and in 15 seconds they get an instance. So that was the fastest in the world back then. And
This was 2019?
no, we launched the product in 2021.
2021. Okay.
Launching the product was not so easy because we got the servers shipped. That buying the servers itself was difficult. In the US, or at least in some of the countries where the demand is high, the shops, right, they keep the servers readily available. In India, the servers that we buy, very few buy, at least back in 2020. So we are buying in 2020. So we had to make an order. It takes like 3 to 6 months to get it delivered. And we try to keep these servers in some of the data centers available in India back then. But the biggest problem that we faced is the data centers in India were built with a mind of CPUs as the core. The CPUs are very powerless hungry. It's like 250 to 300, let's say max 500 watts. So in a rack, you can put like 10 CPU servers and it's maximum 7.5 kilowatts. That's what the power density is. The one GPU server which we took was 4 kilowatts with a redundant of 4 kilowatts. So in any typical Indian rack in 2020, all you can do is host one server, which is like a huge loss for the data center. So what they did is they charged us higher. We got only 2 quotations from the entire data centers in the country. We reached out to most of the data centers. The quote was around 1.5 lakhs for each server, which is the best way for us to kill ourselves.
This is on a monthly basis, 1.5
Monthly
lakhs.
basis. That's right. So we had ordered the servers. They're on the way. We have to solve something. So what we asked is, what does a server room need? Why do we need a data center? So we know, I've seen my father's banking computerization happening. He was working in a bank. And I grew up during the time when the banking was moving from manual to computerization. So I've seen the huge server room. There was USC and there was this big computers. College lab, similar. So why can't these servers run on a simple AC setup, right? Let's do it for a POC kind of thing. Once we know things work, we get the scale and probably we'll try it again. That was the idea. So we kind of built a server room, and that's also one of the reasons why we choose outskirts of Coimbatore. It's not even Coimbatore, which allowed us to fight for the power. We got the power, internet connection. Internet connection itself was a struggle. And then we set it up. That's how we went live.
How many servers did you have at time of going live?
We had 3 servers.
And
Each
one
server,
with 4 GPUs?
No, 8 GPUs.
8 GPUs.
These are industrial grade servers. The ones which we're trying to sell are consumer grade.
Okay.
There's also this challenge that we faced. When we started, we thought we'll go with gaming GPUs. The gaming GPUs were good for AI. They were very cheaper. But NVIDIA did not want people to use these gaming GPUs for business use cases, particularly for AI use cases. So they made a change in probably early 2020 or mid 2020 saying that you're not supposed to use these cards. So we had to move to data center GPUs, which are more expensive. That's the challenge with that. So we could not use that.
What was that first data center GPU called?
Sorry?
That first data center GPU that you used from NVIDIA?
We used was RTX 5000.
RTX 5000, okay.
That was with 16 GB.
Okay.
So the equivalent, what AWS or other hyperscalers used to sell was something like P100. This was as performant as P100. I think that we charged it like $0.49, whereas the other one used to be like 1 point something.
Okay. So now bring us to today. What is Jarvis today?
So we have scaled up our infrastructure. We moved from our server room to a proper tier 3.5 data center. And we kind of are in the process of stopping to buy workstations or buy these servers, because we see a lot of big companies have started investing in servers. So we are kind of partnering with these companies and bringing in those servers into the platform. So buying the servers and keeping is a very capex thing, which is not a very good thing for a bootstrap company. But we have created this orchestration layer, which is like unique. We don't use something like Kubernetes, which many people try to do. Because we built this orchestration layer, the launch times, we brought it from 15 seconds to less than 4 seconds. This happened like a few weeks back. So which allows us to launch an instance very quickly. And this is one of the world's fastest launch times till date. And we also have something called serverless. So the world is moving towards exploration to deploying these AI models, right? when we started, AI was an exploration phase. You open Jupyter Lab or VS Code, you run experiments. That's how it is. Now we are talking about how can I deploy an AI model in a particular region and cater to that particular audience, right? So that's where we are tracking two things. One is serverless. We are partnering with some of the big companies, which allow us to launch these instances across the globe at 20 plus different locations in the coming months. And the serverless allows us to launch these instances in a very short span of time, like few seconds, cater to the user, and the user does not need to write any of the engineering stuff. He can just write small functions, and we convert that function into a production ready endpoint, scale it up as required and scale it down as required, so we reduce the cost of the thing. We're also getting into something called API as a service. So when we started, AI was particularly focused for a niche audience, like CAGLers, researchers. These are the ones who used to use it. But now we believe that AI is going to be used by journalists, doctors, artists. They do not want to understand, or they do not want to get into the complexities of how to set or AI. They just want to consume it in the easiest way possible. So we are trying to make our platform as easy as possible to reach out to the massive audience rather than just concentrate on the small set of people who are working on AI core stuff.
When you said a lot of big companies are investing in servers and you have partnered them to bring it onto the platform, can you explain that? What do you mean by that?
Okay. Uh, so, so what has happened because of the AI waivers?
Maybe give one example of one company.
Okay, I cannot name it. I don't want to
Or
name
you can
my
give a
partners.
generic description of that.
Yeah, there are so many companies, right? Like CoreView is a good example. Millions of dollars have, sorry, billions of dollars have went into it. Iota in India is a good example. So Iota may try to reach out to the global audience by building the entire software stack that we have built over the last 4 years and keep on innovating and go to the global market. Or they can partner with someone like us and they can get access to the global market on day one, right? Without reinventing any of the hardware. Just like Iota, there are so many of these companies in the Europe and in the US which are interested to partner and sell their hardware for us, right? What they offer is just the hardware, the security, and all those things. What we do is we do the software layer, how to quickly spin it, how to create these instances in advance so that the launch times are slower, sorry, launch times are faster, right? This is what we do.
That is what you call the orchestration layer.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we had both the hardware and the orchestration layer. The hardware is become way more expensive than what we started with. When we started in India, there was hardly anyone investing in hardware, so we needed to do it. But now there are a lot of companies who are doing it. Now government has done a lot of incentives. They're planning to invest 5 to 10,000 crores, which mean that more companies are going to invest. So one of the things that they want to do is sell some of their inventory to the global audience. We offer an easy way for them to sell these things to the global audience. Is we're solving the problem two places. One is for the guys who are building these data centers, we give them a marketplace kind of thing, and we do a lot of value additions on top of that. And for the consumer, they don't need to go and get this raw infrastructure, do a lot of things and do it. They want one click on different regions, we pick up the cheapest one and do it.
So for the end users, you're like a SaaS company.
Exactly.
And for the hardware, big hardware companies, you're a discoverability
Exactly.
platform. So the end users can find the best.
Correct.
And you also help them find the best option.
So the end user does not need to look at it like a GPU perspective.
Right.
He can look at it as a functionality perspective.
Right.
I want Llama 3.1 to be running on and I'm at a location closer to the US or closer to India. That's all he needs to care about. He does not need to worry about what GPU is this, what data center is. That's entire thing abstracted. So when you upload your photos to Google, you don't really worry about why these photos are getting uploaded, right? This orchestration layer takes care of that.
Any examples of the end user companies that that will illustrate this for us?
Sorry, come again.
So I mean, some examples of the end user enterprise companies
Who uses us?
who use your
some of the big names in India are Zoho. Upgrad uses us. Upgrad has been one of our earlier customers. Probably one of the first enterprise customers is Upgrad. And in the US, we had Weights and Biases, some University of California. Again, we also have a B2C wing where we have researchers from Berkeley, Tesla, Meta. Some of these, by using from our early days, they go up and down. And in NIT is one of our customer. There are at least like 30, 40 decent names across the world which use our platform today.
And what are they using you for?
Yeah, so primarily they use us for the model training and fine tuning, right? Now with the serverless, they're also started. So serverless, we started building it because of our customers asking it. So there's one company which is a startup which uses for cloth try on, right? They have built an product which lets you upload your photo and upload an image of a cloth and you can quickly try on. The backend of that, the AI part of that is running on our platform through the serverless part. There's few examples like this.
Can you give us a sort of layperson's explanation of what serverless is actually about?
Okay.
Why do you call it serverless?
Okay. So serverless started with AWS building something called Lambda. That was the inspiration for most of the people. So today, the way, if you want, let's say for example, Flipkart is doing their big $1 billion sale. So what happens as part of big $1 billion sale? They need huge compute for a very short period of time, right? And they use Llama 3.1, or some of the AI model to help with customer support, right? So serverless, what it does is, as more requests come in, we automatically create more instances. As the requests go down, we reduce the compute required, right? It can go even to zero. So basically, if business is not using the service, you do not pay anything. Or if you want if we have something called cold start, the time to start one single computer. If people don't want that, they can say, I want a minimum these instances for which I'm ready to pay for the entire duration. The rest all just spin up as there are more requests, bring it down when they're not required. This is actually very useful for the companies. What used to happen is each companies used to build this. A lot of companies needed it. There's one way to solve it is buy a big server with like 16, 20 GPUs and do it. But then when you don't have the scale for it, you suffer with that inventory. With serverless, what happens is which department needs more compute, they get that at that point of time and it automatically shrinks.
Can you talk a bit about how, I mean, to my mind, in the context of your partnership with Open Cloud Compute as well, I was thinking about how in India this makes so much sense, right? I mean, because there are so many small startups and not everyone can probably afford a big tech, Microsoft or AWS kind of instance, or even a IOTA for that matter, where your company might make eminent sense just purely from the cost perspective, but as they go along, you're offering an orchestration layer that adds other advantages. So if you step back and look at the Indian AI ecosystem, can you give us a sense of what is the role a company like yours can play, and how you might expand sort of your offerings and so on?
Okay. I met probably Tanvi after one of my posts on LinkedIn. That's how Tanvi came and had a conversation with me. And she explained her vision of how to take AI to the masses. She spoke about two particular categories. One is education, basically in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and in the medical. So I started thinking about if there are education, how AI can be used is using LLMs, one of the way, to explain to kids in a way that's super easy to understand a particular concept. So I went and looked at if there are already API providers, are they not economical? Because at least from where we sit and watch, the API industry, when I say API industry, it's some of the companies which offer AI models as an API, is super competitive, heavily subsidized by VC today. Is it not possible to use these token-based system for deploying it to an education system like our country? So I just did a small calculation for one classroom, what would be required to use this. The problem with any of these GPT-4 or Claude models is, as your prompt grows bigger, the charges of that becomes exponential. So which means most of the government schools, or even for that matter, private schools, it's too expensive to bring in these technologies to education. So, where platforms like us can help us, let's say some of the data centers, there are small data centers which brought in small GPUs. You spoke about Yota. Yota has heavily invested in H100. H100s are primarily used across the world for training foundational models. And training foundational models, from a technical standpoint of view, we believe that it's going to decrease because Meta and Mistral has been launching the most powerful models, which are capable of doing any foundational model if you have done in-house. I think JP Morgan made an article around that. One of the thing they said is when GPT 3.5 came, they built their own model inside. But when GPT 4 came, it kind of made it like useless. Right? The same thing happens for Meta 3 or Meta 4. So what a country like India needs is the smaller GPUs if the target audience is the education and the health sector. For that, if there are data centers that are, we also heavily invest in the smaller GPUs. So we are mostly bringing in through the partners, the H100s and the bigger GPUs. But the smaller GPUs, if we don't have any partner, we'll continue investing in it because we believe that's what is required for your college student or deploying it to your schools and medical things. Through OCC, they're trying to do two things. One is figure out orchestration layers, multiple ones, not just Jarvis Labs, and figure out data centers. If there are like 100 data centers they can put in, we can provide one of the layers for them to interact with these data centers. And one of the common thing we misunderstand or we don't put importance on is it's not just the GPU that matters, it's the software stack that you put on top of that. We have been working on the software stack and we have been talking to students, doctors across the world. And we know the kind of complexities these folks face while using these platforms. So we fall into this particular space where we actually help them access the most affordable GPUs and also help them focus on building certain things rather than worrying about the complexities of the technology.
Okay. So Open Cloud Compute is working to build this grid of micro data centers.
Exactly.
And you're in a great place to use, in a way, to extend your orchestration layer to connect all these data
It's
centers.
both the orchestration layer as well as the data center. We are on two sides of that.
So an end customer can use a different data center through you and put their applications on it, train their models on it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's either through us, even today they can do that. Through Jarvis Labs, you can spin something in a US data center or in a Europe data center, but not many Indian data centers today. I'm hoping that through OCC, let's say if we have like 100 mini data centers, push them to the global audience, give them a market to the international market along with Indian market.
It's pretty awesome. Can you talk about that a bit more over the next 3 to 5 years? What is sort of the vision for where you want Jarvis to be?
So I am again a great fan of Sridhar Membu. So where he believes that our culture is thinking long term. We have kind of in the last 20, 30 years looked at the Western world and tried to do the VC route. That's one of the reasons why we remain bootstrapped, which means AI is changing a lot. So we are keeping our eyes open. In fact, the name of the company Jarvis Labs is through my curiosity during my childhood. I like to do a lot of experiments. So Jarvis Labs is a place where we do a lot of experiments. We keep it very open. So wherever we see a new idea that we can solve, we can do it. I'll give you two examples of where we want to be. One is Hugging Face and one is Canva. Hugging Face started as a library which converted a particular architecture called Transformer. I remember when I was participating in Kaggle competitions, the founders requesting the Kagglers to use the library. But today, if you see, they do a lot of things because they kept their mind open and they did not say, I'm just not just going to do that. That's what we want to be. Hugging Face is doing for enterprises. We want to do for all the others, like Fortune 500 and the rest of the Fortune 500. That's where we are focusing. The second thing is Canva. Canva is also a good example of how you can integrate design into different aspects of it, right? Microsoft PowerPoint offers you something raw. Of course, they have abstracted a layer. Canva does next level of abstraction. We are also looking at Jarvis Labs as that level of abstraction. If you find something complicated in the AI space, make it easier and allow people to use it in the masses. That's what we are focusing at. The long term is build something like Zoho or be much bigger than Zoho. That's aspiration. The long term, as long as we are alive and pass it on to the next generation.
Today, how many people in your team?
So we were 3 people till 2024. Early in 2024, we hired another 10 plus people who are all not even graduates, who just finished their 12th. This again came from, copied from
Zoho
Zoho
University
schools.
inspiration.
Yeah. And
Very
probably
nice.
I have to say, he was right to say people who just finished 12th are not still corrupted. The curiosity is still high. So they actually work way better. They're more efficient. They easily learn things. And particularly when you put Claude and ChatGPT as their co-pilots, they're super efficient than the average engineer comes out of the colleges.
Yeah, I've spoken with young people at Zoho who started after 12th and have risen up to become product managers and
Yes.
lead architects, whatnot.
So some of these guys are building the core part of engineering. So I was talking about how we brought 15 seconds to 4 seconds in one particular scenario and 15 to 2 seconds in another particular scenario. This was all built by these guys and me.
In practical, physical terms, what does this level of expansion entail for you?
Can you elaborate?
I mean, do you need to set up bigger data centers? Do you need to have more offices? What does that mean?
Yeah. In our earlier avatar, we should have done that. Let's say, for example, if there are not many companies investing in data center GPUs, we should have done the expansion path, have bigger server rooms, bigger GPUs and all. But now we don't need to do that, right? We can invest on GPUs if we see a particular segment is not being met. For example, today we see the bigger companies are investing in the bigger GPUs like H100, a small amount in L40S, but not many invest in the 24 GB or 16 GB GPU, which is good enough for most of the use cases, right? So we keep on investing in the 24 GB, the VRAM, 24 GB VRAM section. If we see that other companies are investing in that, we will stop doing that. And we will expand on the team, but I don't think we need to expand on the team to a crazy level like 1,000 or something. So what happened again with these technologies is your Cursor, GitHub Copilot, Claude, ChatGPT, or probably some other tool, even Gemini for that matter. The person is like 100x productive, right? So even a small team of 10 people sitting somewhere remote in a country can compete with some of the best teams across the world, as long as they're ready to be curious and work hard. So we don't want to expand the team so fast. We'll pick one person at a time. And I also make a joke, I don't know whether we will do it really. While growing up, I've seen companies saying that we hire only from IITians. I have great respect for IITians, but I don't have great respect for companies who say we only hire from IITians. So I used to jokingly tell that we will hire people who only have not finished their graduation.
The last I could check, I looked up these numbers on Traction. You had upwards of $200,000 in revenue and you're a profitable company, yes? And so I'm just thinking, the reason I mentioned it is in now your expansion, I get the sense, is more software driven. So I'm wondering, will you need a lot of money? Are you planning on continuing to be bootstrapped? What's the thinking on that?
So we want to remain bootstrapped. And at least in the middle, we had a doubt, like I had been like a cat on wall. If I get funding, life becomes easier. But now I don't think we need to do that anymore. We are making more than what we need. And we stopped investing in hardware, which means we're accumulating our profits. We made more than $500,000 last year. And we are hoping that we'll be crossing $1 million or two, more than $1 million for sure this year, this financial year. Financially, is a long way to go through our partnerships and all. It's growing exponentially. And the team has also increased. For a long time, we had been 3 people taking care of the hardware. So our team used to take care of filling the diesel generators, putting the generator and all. So now we don't do all those things, and we have a expanded team. With that, we hope we will be crossing 5 million in the next coming years.
Okay. Can you briefly talk about over the next 12 to 18 months, what are your top priorities?
One thing we have been very bad at is marketing, right? I'm an engineering. I've come from engineering background, so my tendency is to go and write code. Every time I say I want to do marketing, I start doing marketing inbound, mostly making YouTube videos or making LinkedIn posts. That's how I have been looking at it. But the moment I get an engineering problem, I get to that. So I've been trying to avoid that, and I want to spend the next 1 year in growing our YouTube educational channel. In one of the marketing tool that we have picked up is education, which is also something I'm passionate about. There's not much quality content on the AI, so we want to make it easy. This also comes from one of the discussion with Tanvi on the OCC meeting, where we had a bunch of students, where they were talking about some of the problems that they are explaining, right? What problems do we have with GPU cloud providers today? So we want to address those things through YouTube, which will also help us in the market. The second one is have more partners, one or two big partners and the smaller partners, which will allow us to scale infinitely, right? Today we are not. There are customers who have come to us and they've asked us like, can you scale up to 1,000 GPUs? That's something which had been harder a few months back. We have cracked that. Now we have to go beyond those customers. Sales and marketing would be our biggest thing that we have to do in the next 2-3 years.